Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody would want to hear like a COVID song that was like all about COVID. You know what I mean? Like, and plus, like after a couple of years, that would be super dated, and then you'd never want to play it again. You know what I mean?
Hey everyone, I'm Katie Darrell, and today we are at home and social with Chris Shiflett. Let's see, let's run down the line, shall we? Foo Fighter, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, alt country songwriter. What am I missing? Like lion tamer? It seems like you're doing everything.
Well, we did just get some Maine Coons. I don't know if you're familiar with those cats, but that's as close to owning an exotic animal as we've ever gotten.
You just released a new single. It's called
Yeah.
Long Long Year. It's got
Yes.
sway. It's got swagger. It's not the traditional rock and roll that people associate with your name when they think of Foo Fighters. This is your solo stuff.
Yeah.
Bring us through this process because it was recorded in Nashville as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote the song like during the lockdown, a couple of years ago, and then and hadn't recorded any solo stuff for a minute. And obviously, just like anybody else, like when the lockdown happened and COVID happened, it just kind of stopped the whole world in its tracks. So, it was getting to be about that time to record some new stuff, and I went out to Nashville and recorded this song, Long Long Year, and another song called Born and Raised that's going to come out in September, with a producer named Vance Powell, who I had never worked with before, but was just a fan of his work, and that was like my first time jumping on a plane, for a while, and like just going out and doing anything. So it was like first time leaving the house, for about a year or so, I think, and it was a lot of fun, and we just recorded over the weekend and got these two songs, and yeah, stoked to finally get it out. It takes, as a musician, when you record something and you get it done and you mix it and you master it and everything, you just want to put it out that day.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh wait, I gotta figure out some artwork, and wait, how am I gonna put this thing out, and how's that work? And so the whole thing, took a minute to get it out, but I'm glad it's finally out there.
Well, so with songwriting, kind of bring me through this because I have zero musical talent. All I do is get to talk to musicians. But the phrase, okay, long, long year, you had said that this was obviously something that was stuck in your head because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But now the song has more of a love song feel. How often do you have to pivot and be like, long, long year meant something else. It meant pandemic, but it works better as a love song. How do you set yourself on the right track to know that it needs to go this way or that way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody would want to hear like a COVID song that was like all about COVID. You know what I mean? Like, and plus, like after a couple of years, that would be super dated, and then you'd never want to play it again. You know what I mean? So I have heard from a lot of like my songwriter friends, out in Nashville over the years, that a lot of people start with like the hook line and sort of work their way back from that, and once you have that, then you sort of figure out the narrative. So I just kind of did that with it, and I knew I didn't want to write like some sort of COVID anthem or whatever, so I just turned it into just kind of a love song, but still trying to capture that feeling of like, sitting in my studio alone, missing other humans.
Why did you have to go to Nashville? I mean, obviously you probably have some good connections in Los Angeles. Why was it important to get this recording done over there?
Yeah, I mean, I've made my last couple solo records out there, and for the type, my solo records lean a little like country rock, Americana flavored, and for in that world, it's like Nashville's kind of, it's the place to work. So there's just such a deep talent pool, and then obviously LA has a deep talent pool. You can go to Austin, you can go anywhere, but I got a lot of friends out there, and the folks that I wanted to work with were out there, and it was nice to just get out of town and change the scenery too. That's always a good thing.
I think we're going to get to hear the song though at BeachLife because you're going to be performing down Redondo Beach in September. Will this be the first time you publicly perform the song?
It's funny. I played it. I did like a Christmas show last year, in like a holiday show up in Santa Barbara, and played it just solo acoustic. Because by then I'd already, like, the song was long since recorded and everything, but nobody's ever heard it, so it was a total dud. And I remember afterwards, my wife was like, that song sucked. It was a bummer, man. Why'd you play that for? But
we're going to release it as a single, babe.
I know. But it's like, you realize like playing stuff live that nobody's ever heard is can be a tough sell. So I'm excited to see what it's like to play it in front of crowd of people that maybe a few of them have heard it, hopefully. Now, the tough part is is I was thinking about it the other day, like the mandolin and Sierra Hull's vocal are so
Mhm.
prominent on the recording. I'm like, but I don't have a mandolin player in my solo band. What are we gonna do?
Ruh-roh.
Yeah, I know. So we'll have to figure that out.
Will you be bringing your surfboard down to Redondo Beach and hitting the waves before the Beach Life Festival?
If there's swell, yeah, for sure. If there's swell and if Jim paddle blocks for me, I'm all in.
I hate to pivot back, but actually, you bring up a good point when you said it's hard to play the new stuff, right? Because people haven't yet connected to it.
Yeah.
And this is probably like fan complaint number one, right? Even you probably have had these complaints when you were a 12-year-old kid going to a concert where you want to be like, just the hits, just the new stuff, boo, new album stuff. This is when you go and take a bathroom break. As a band on stage, do you see that happen? Do you see like, oh, everyone's going to get their beer refills right now because this is the new tune? How do we draw them back?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And and it's that thing that you kind of have to keep in balance where for a band, you're usually most excited about the thing that you just made. Yeah. But fans are most excited about the stuff that they know really well, Yeah. Obviously, I think everybody's kind of like that. So it is that sort of finding that mix of like, you want to play your new stuff, but you're not going to play all 10 songs, in a row.
What is the last concert that you went to that you were in the audience, not like side stage because they opened for you?
Last concert I was in the audience. What was it? I went to go see the Stones a little while ago at SoFi Stadium. That might have been it. Yeah, that might have been it. I'm sorry to say I don't get out much.
No, I don't either. And it's so weird. I get invited all the time. People, we end interviews and they're like, you should come out to the show. And I'm like, you know what? I've got like 4 more interviews just like this back to back. And I like, if I took the tickets for everything,
well, that's the thing too. And like, I live in LA and when it's tough. It's tough because like to get over to where there's a gig, it's like, it might take you an hour and a half or whatever. So you're kind of like, I'm pretty gigged out.
Yeah. Traffic sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So what we're doing here, you do this. You've got yet another job. All right. For those of you just tuning in, I'm Katie Darrell. He's Chris Shiflett of the Foo Fighters and his own indie fame. You have a podcast. It's like you've had over 200 episodes. It's called Walk the Floor or Walking the Floor. Sorry, my apologies. What have you learned doing interviews to become better at doing the interviews and make them more conversation style?
Oh man, when I started, I'd never really interviewed anybody at all and I was just winging it. So I was A, really bad at it, and B, really nervous about it. And when you're nervous about it, it makes it all worse. It's like, that's when you start fumbling and then I'm not exaggerating. I would go back and edit the interviews I'd done and I would re-record my question because I would so often fumble it so hard, Yeah. And then the other big one was like, try not to talk over your guest when they're answering the question. That was a big one. Because that can be tough too. And that kind of got hard with Zoom because Zoom has just a teeny bit of latency, just enough that somebody might be about to go into something and then you interrupt them. So that was sort of like learning that whole thing again. And then, as a musician who's done a bunch of interviews, over the years, I really try to figure out like what somebody wants to talk about that they don't normally get to talk about. Because you kind of, you have like a handful of questions that you always get asked. And it's like, try to avoid that stuff as much as you can.
What are the common questions? What should I never ask again?
God, I mean, for me, there's a handful of them. What would they be? Like, there's like this just sort of like drive time radio stuff, like tell me some crazy stories from the road, that sort of stuff. Like, I can't tell you any of the crazy stories. I'd get in trouble.
Right, exactly. Now you're putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
Right?
But then there's like the stuff that you've just kind of discussed into the ground, and like every time you put out a record, it seems like that record, a narrative develops around that record, and it's like the whole world plays along, and you just kind of it sort of varies from record to record, but you just get asked about the same kind of thing over and over. And you know, I mean,
How do you pick your guests? Because again, you've had over 200 of them on Walking the Floor. Most recently, Wolfgang Van Halen.
yeah,
Yes, by the
yes,
way.
yeah,
But you've
yeah.
also had, Greta Van Fleet and Tommy Lee. Oh
Well,
God.
when I
Don't click
first,
on any photos Tommy Lee posts, you guys.
I know. Yeah. How do I pick my guests? It's varied over the years. When I was first starting out, I was really trying to focus a lot on Americana and country music,
Mm-hmm.
which is like just genre that I love and am interested in. And after doing that for a long time, then I started trying to kind of like broaden it a little bit. And obviously somebody like Tommy Lee is like a guy I grew up listening to, so I jumped at the chance to interview him. And Wolfgang Van Halen, I'd never met. Of course, I'm a fan of his dad's music and everything,
Yeah.
but then he's got his solo career, and he's got he toured with Van Halen a bunch in the later years, and so to get to interview him and talk to him was really cool and get to know him a little bit, and just sort of hear his perspective on things. That's those. There's like sort of the two things that are the kind of the most fun with doing the podcast. It's fun to talk to legends who you
Sure.
are a big fan of.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also fun to talk to people that are just starting out, that are maybe touring their first record, or they're, on their first or second record, and have less of a story, but they maybe are, they're just in it and they're doing it and they're building that fan base and hitting the road for the first time and all that stuff. So yeah, I kind of enjoyed both sides of it.
All right. So someone that's I don't even want to say kind of starting out because she's been kicking major butt, but okay. So Nandi Bushell, right? And this girl became an internet phenom, especially because of COVID, and has played with you guys quite a bit and excels at her instruments so well. And everyone is in love with her, but it always brings me back to, good God, was everyone this good at that age? Like, were you so proficient at your instrument around her age as well? Or when did you perfect your
No,
skill?
no. Like I was terrible. I'm not even sure exactly how old she is, but I was not very good until, the thing for me that did it was just all my friends were musicians, it seemed
Mm-hmm.
like, and everybody was in a band, and we would always be in a bunch of different bands all through high school. So, I could barely play a note when I first started playing in bands, like in ninth grade. But by the end of high school, it was like you kind of look back and go, well, we kind of, we just did it so much that we got better. But um, it's such a different thing nowadays, because I use this myself all the time. Like, you didn't have like YouTube tutorials and stuff
Yeah.
back then. And so I think maybe because of that, and maybe because I just wasn't very good, I didn't really learn a lot of other people's music, a little bit, the broad strokes of it. My band would do the odd cover or whatever, but I wasn't one of those people that like learned how to play songs note for note. I was just sort of never really did that. And I think it kind of like made you just kind of figure out your own thing a little more,
There's been this new craze with bands releasing their music on cassette tapes.
Ah.
Do you have a cassette tape collection? Because I know most people have their vinyl, but where's your cassette life these days?
Yeah, I don't. I probably have some old cassettes in a box somewhere.
Yeah.
I grew up with cassettes, like in the 80s and stuff. We'd always make
Did you
like,
make mixtapes?
oh yeah, of course, all the time. I don't know if you remember, you might not be old enough to remember, but there was a brief moment there where you could go to like the record store. Like I remember, I want to say it was like Licorice Pizza in Santa Barbara had this machine for a minute that you could make a mixtape on. Like you would pick the songs and then it would spit out a cassette tape. But
I mean,
yeah,
I'm of the generation where I would listen to the radio and you try and hit record as the DJ plays it.
oh yeah.
Do you make playlists now, or are you totally okay
Yeah.
with whatever randomly comes on with Pandora or what have you?
I'm not. I'm probably a little too opinionated to let the algorithm choose things for me. Most of the time, but sometimes it gets it right. But yeah, no, I do make playlists sometimes. Like, if I'm gonna go for a run or something, and I don't want to have to sit there and like fumble through my phone while I'm doing it.
Have you tested out the algorithm on your new song? So the new song is called Long Year. What comes on after you request that song?
Ooh.
Who are you side by side with?
That's a good question. I have no idea. Somebody, we should test that right now.
I know. Okay, Google, play
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah. I don't, that's a good
Who
question.
would you
Yeah. I
want?
don't
Who
know.
would you want to be side by side with you on the algorithm?
Oh man, there's so many people. I mean, it'd be an honor and a privilege to be side by side with anybody. Like, you know, any of the it basically I would think of that like who would you want to go on tour with? You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And so yeah, anybody that I would want my solo thing to go on tour. I mean, that could be any, you know, Chris Stapleton or, you know, Jason Isbell or Sturgill, say, you know, any
Yeah.
Lucinda Williams, whoever it is, you know, like the people that I think it's always like the people that you listen to a lot. Maybe you would be who you would want to go on tour with, just so you could listen to them play every night.
Um, do you have tour plans coming up?
Not for my solo thing. I do have some shows, you know, doing Beach Life, of
Hmm.
course. And that'll be my first gig in a while. And then I'm gonna open up some shows for Social D a little bit later in the year. So that'll be fun. I've done that here and there over the years, and that's always a pleasure.
For Beach Life, are you Friday night? You're Friday
I
night.
no, I'm Saturday night. Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah, yeah,
nice.
yeah.
The whole lineup looks really fantastic.
Yeah, well, you know it's going to be cool. I mean, it's a great festival. I was really stoked to get added to it because a buddy of mine had actually texted me the lineup maybe a couple weeks before I got added to it and was like, "You should get on this festival." And I was like, "Yeah, of course I should get on any great festival. Sure, yeah, okay, sure." But like, it's too late, you know. It's
Yeah.
already announced. Like, it's in September. You know, usually these things get booked up so far in advance. So I just didn't even really think about like attempting to get on it, and then I got a call from my manager that we got an offer, so I was just jumped at it because it is a great lineup. And not only do I get to play a solo set, but I'm going to play you know, Shooter Jennings is putting together a tribute to his dad, to
Mhm, mhm.
Waylon. So I get to go play a Waylon Jennings classic.
What are the rules, whether you're at a festival or you're on tour or you just happen to be backstage visiting a buddy, touching gear?
uh
Are you allowed to be like, "Ah, I'm gonna pick up Jennings', guitar here and give it a strum," or do you have to, is it like a boat, permission to board? Like,
Yeah, I think it's kind of permission board. I mean, I wouldn't grab somebody else's guitar unless they said, "Hey, check this out," just because, you know, I wouldn't want somebody putting their greasy mitts all over my guitar right before I have to go
yeah,
play a
yeah,
show after my tech just like changed the strings and it's all fresh and clean.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would just, and so, you know, everybody's different. Some people could not care less and some people are super precious.
Mhm.
I'm probably somewhere in the middle of that. I don't think I'm too precious about it, but don't necessarily want just any old buddy just put, you know, messing up my stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think yeah, yeah, wait till somebody offers. If somebody goes, "Dude, check this out,"
Yeah.
and you're like, "Okay."
The new song, Long, Long Year, what gear did you play on this? It was a special guitar used for this, or is this just one that was happened to be laying around the studio?
Yeah, you know, since I was heading out to Nashville, I didn't bring a lot of gear. I brought one guitar, I think. I brought a Tele, just a classic Telecaster, Fender Telecaster, and I brought a little scaled down pedal board that I could just carry on the flight, you know. And then I asked Vance like what amps he had at his studio, and he had, you know, a bunch of options, and I think I just played an old deluxe reverb or whatever. And then for the acoustic guitar track, I just used whatever he had. I don't even remember, but you know, he had a bunch of acoustic guitars. So yeah, I just kind of used what they had. You know, there's like the stuff that I like, but a guy like Vance, he's such a great engineer and a great
Mhm.
mixer and a great producer that I wasn't too worried about it. Plus, it's Nashville. Like I remember one time I played a gig in Nashville that was I flew in and we were renting gear, and somehow there was a mix up and like half the gear didn't show up to the club. So we get to the club and we're kind of stressing out, like, and because I didn't have an amp, you know, there was supposed to be an amp and there's no amp. And I remember I was getting a little stressed about it, and the guy, that the house sound guy, just looks at me at one point and goes, "Dude, it's Nashville, we're gonna find you an amp." I was like,
Simmer
okay,
down.
yeah, point taken, point taken.
Yeah, you can just open the front door and
Yeah.
yell.
Yeah, I know you
Anyone
pretty
got
much
an
like
amp?
throw a rock and hit the amp, you know, it's a vintage whatever, you know.
All right, breakfast with rock stars. What do you have for breakfast this morning?
I had some Quaker granola.
Pretty
Pretty
healthy.
straightforward. I didn't even add strawberries or anything to it. Just yeah, because I had some eggs yesterday, and I don't like to do that big eggy, sausagey, buttery toast thing every day. Just most days.
Moderation,
Yeah,
moderation.
yeah.
All right, Chris. Well, anyone can go and grab tickets to go see Beach Life, the festival. It's a 3-day event. So many great people are on the lineup, including you. Fans will get to hear the new song, Long,
Yeah.
Long Year, and a bunch of other original stuff as well. So
Yeah, and then we're gonna make everybody really sad by playing even more new songs after that they haven't heard. So get ready for that.
I wrote this morning.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Chris, thank you so much for hanging out today. It was really a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks for doing the interview.
Hey there, thanks for watching AXS TV. Subscribe, follow, like, and do all the good stuff. And make sure you leave a comment below. I don't know, just let us know what your favorite AXS TV show is, or who your favorite bands are, and what artists you're into, or just say hi, man. I'd like to be told hi. We love hearing from you. That's the point, all right? Keep it coming.